Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Tuesdays with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. And now your host, Brian Tally.
Welcome back to Tuesdays with Tally podcast, where we add real-life value to the lives of everyday people. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The online information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. Now, folks, I want to tell you about this show. We are 118 days old. And today we do episode 83, 118 days old, episode 83. I have been blessed to have so many great friends and colleagues and really just some great Americans, both men and women, who have so much to offer and so much wisdom and real life value to add to so many people out there who may be looking for it during these holiday seasons. And again, to have been so blessed to be surrounded by so many like-minded individuals and community servants and leaders and military veterans and first responders, it has been an absolute blessing to learn so much from these very, very talented men and women. Now, folks, before we get started on the podcast, I want to know if you are a business owner that's looking to get the word out on your products, on your business, on your merchandise, whatever it may be. Advertise your business right here on this podcast. Let me help you reach your goals. Contact me. Let's put a marketing plan together and develop a strategy that will help take your business to the next level. Now, folks, today's show sponsor is dreamingaboutthemouse.com. Book your next vacation with them today. Dreamingaboutthemouse.com. Let them take care of your hassles of planning a trip so you can enjoy the unforgettable trip of a lifetime from start to finish. Now, how do you reach them? Well, easy. Contact Lynn directly at lynn@dreamingaboutthemouse.com. That is her direct email, lynn@dreamingaboutthemouse.com, to book your next vacation today. Now, Dreaming About the Mouse Travel is a Christian-based travel agency with a heart of service that uses their years of expertise to help turn your vacation dreams into reality. Their number one goal is to take the stress out of planning for busy families and to serve them with integrity. They take care of all the details, and you get to experience all the fun. Make new memories and share in the excitement that your vacation will offer. Again, contact them today at dreamingaboutthemouse.com and book your vacation package today. That's dreamingaboutthemouse.com, or call 719-216-2626 to book your vacation today. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Tim Stroud is a former combat medic in the United States Army. He served honorably for 4.5 years of active service with deployments to Kosovo, Kuwait, and Iraq. During these years, Tim learned volumes about team building, leadership, and camaraderie. He also sought out a mentor during his transition back into civilian life and began a 7-year relationship with Army veteran and entrepreneur Paul J. Meyer. After his honorable discharge from the military, Tim decided to start several businesses in Texas and focus on supporting veterans as they transitioned back to civilian life. He also was led to spearhead several projects to help others find their voices. He created an Army Wall of Fame at Fort Hood, built TexVet for the state of Texas, and founded the Killeen Police Department Law Enforcement Assistance Fund in honor of his father. As a subject matter expert on transitional services for veterans, he frequently speaks on topics such as employment, education, homelessness, and support services. He lives in Houston, Texas, and continues to champion several causes for veterans and their families. Tim has been recognized for his community engagement and volunteerism by commanding generals at Fort Hood, the state of Texas, the city of Houston, and over 50 veteran service organizations. He was recently awarded the Veteran Volunteer of the Year by the Houston VA in August of 2022. Tim has two daughters, Amber and Jacqueline, aptly nicknamed the Hurricane and the Tornado. They keep him grounded and remind him of the value of life. And with that, we are honored to be joined by Tim Stroud himself. How are you, sir?
Brian, I am doing unbelievably well, and I've got references. And, I had to pause there for a second because the name Brian Talley, I'm like, Brian? I was like, I just call you Talley. I mean, it's just like in the military, Stroud, Talley, and it's like, oh, he's got a first name.
I do, yeah. It's Brian, but nobody knows. It's kind of like a secret,
All right.
It's my cover name.
Secret's out.
How you doing today, man, down there in Houston?
I am doing well. In fact, I was just talking with a veteran right before this program, and he's at a point in time where he needs a service dog in his life. So we talked about that and got him on the right path, and he couldn't be happier. And I think this will be like the 51st or 52nd service dog that Easter Seals of Greater Houston has gifted a veteran. And as you know, they're not cheap. Service dogs are around $40,000 a piece because you get 2 years worth of training and no cost to the veteran. This is all grant funded. And let's face it, if you served our country honorably, you already paid the price.
Wow, that's incredible. $40,000 for a service dog. That's something I would have never guessed.
Well, and you know what? These days you can go on the internet and you can order a vest and print up a certificate for $25 or $50 online. Says this is a service dog. And that's horse fit. I mean, we all know you have to look to the canine and the human. Are they compatible? Is the dog trained? Is the human trained? And most times, they're trying to get by on the system. I shouldn't say most times. There is a sliver of a slice of a population that loves to get by. Doesn't matter if it's parking in handicap parking or trying to take a discount when there's not one. There are always those professional veterans, right?
Indeed. Yes. The folks that kind of abuse the system, I guess, at some points, like you said, parking and handicapped or whatever, trying to find things. Yeah. But totally.
One of the things I found out, weeds grow in the nicest of golf courses. It doesn't matter if you've painstakingly put in the hydroponic system and planted the grass and fertilized it. There's always going to be a weed that pops up. And great thing about it, you can pluck them up and discard them.
That's why we got.
Yeah,
that's why we got Roundup, right?
Herbicides.
Now, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, because I know you're a very interesting man, and you definitely run a very tight schedule. You're all over the place. You are so active in the Houston metro area. But I want to know a little bit about Tim. Where did you grow up, and what was life like as a kid?
You know what? And I will frame this that way people know. It's like, hey, it's another bald veteran with the dog, right? What's going on here? Well, Brian, I don't know about you, but I never thought I would continue the service of my grandfather and father and join the military. I was very proud of them and their service. But my dad, after he served in the United States Army and served in Vietnam and Germany, came back home, transitioned out of the military at Fort Riley, Kansas. And as a policeman, he joined the police force right near St. Louis in St. Charles County and St. Charles, Missouri. And that was a great life for us until it wasn't. I was 5 years old and my father was killed in the line of duty. He went to work one day, like so many police officers, firemen, and EMS, and didn't come home. And it really confused me. I'm 5. It's 2 weeks before Halloween. And I'm super excited to spend time with my dad and, of course, go get some free candy. And then I see my dad all over the TV, and my mom started crying. I couldn't understand because my dad's a hero. He's on TV. And then I find out that he's never coming back home. And I remember like it was yesterday. And people's like, oh, you can't remember. You're remembering somebody else's dictation of what happened. No, Brian, I remember like it was yesterday, being at the funeral and experiencing all the pain, but also the love of how many people came around to honor my father and his service. And so after my mom passed away in my early 20s, I kind of spiraled. I did not have a clear path for professionalism, and I needed discipline and direction. And the great thing about it, those drill sergeants at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, they were happy to give a smart ass like me a nice little lesson or two. And yeah, go ahead, jump in there.
You know, I'm very sorry about your father that was killed in the line of duty, serving his community. And you'd be so proud of you today to know that you have kind of followed in those footsteps, not of being a police officer in the community, but being a servant in the community that you live in and the community that you serve. So two men that have served, but in just two different arenas. Now, at 5 years old, you took on some trauma that the majority of 5-year-olds will never see in their lifetime.
Oh, yeah.
What was that like to take that all in as a 5-year-old and to really show signs of perseverance and resilience at ages that you're not really supposed to be persevering and showing signs of resilience at 5? You're supposed to be outside playing and riding a bike and playing with, race cars and, building dirt mounds and all that other stuff. What was that like? What was your childhood like post your father being killed in the line of duty, Tim?
I think that as we look back on our lives, we are connected by our memories. And thankfully, today we have pictures and video that can take care of some of that and connect those dots. For me, it's kind of scattered because back in the late 70s, early 80s, not everybody had a camera stuck in their pocket that could make phone calls, right? So you would have to take the 110 camera and you would take 24 pictures and then drop it off at Kodak or Fuji and get everything developed and see if actually was a good picture or not, whether it was funny or serious. And I look back to those moments in time and a snapshot, if you will, of when my father was being honored at his funeral. And it still, I wouldn't say triggers me, but I remember with acute accuracy of the two different trumpeters playing taps and one echoing the other. And then the bagpipe coming in and having him play Amazing Grace that is just wafted over the cemetery. And just moments before they closed the casket, I asked my uncle to hold me up one more time so I could look into the casket and say goodbye to my father. And that was the moment for my mother to where she did not want any more trauma invested in my life. And so she tried to shelter me, which I understand being protective, but at the same time, I wanted to talk about my father's life, his experiences, and talk to his friends. And for the next 10 years, man, mom's the word. Nobody wanted to talk to me about my father. So painful for them because he was 26 years old when he was killed, 26. And all of that pain for them, they just stuffed it down. Like so many of us do in the military and the law enforcement, is that we just push it down and we put it into a tiny compartment. And then we stick it right here in the back of our brains. And if we need to access it at some point, we do. But I was a voracious reader and I was very inquisitive. I read a lot of Arthur Conan Doyle. And so I grew up loving Sherlock Holmes and I wanted to be a detective. And I sought out my father's friends and his military buddies. And I compiled a 3-ring binder. Basically, it's a pre-written book about my father and all the experiences that he had from people outside my family. And then after I showed my family, they were excited because they knew at that point that I was their catalyst and they could talk about my dad again. So I started getting their stories. And you know what? You would think there was a lot of pain. And I have pain in my life just like so many others. I mean, if you dig deep enough, you'll find that trauma. And sometimes you only have to peel one layer of that onion or it's sitting right there on the top. And for me, I took it as an opportunity to share with others and learn about them. And so it's just started a lifelong learning process of sharing and then understanding and learning and finding out where somebody is on their road to recovery and getting in step with them.
Mm-hmm. Now, like you had said, man, the taps and the bagpipes, they get me every time. I mean, just hearing that, it makes me very, very emotional. And even if I don't have an emotional connection to the folks that they are playing that for, it still makes me very emotional just because of the sacrifice and the service that person has given to initiate the taps being played and to have those folks out there with the bagpipes. Now, you were, or your father was 26 years old when he was killed in the line of duty. You were 5. You would grow up with a single mom, right? In a single household.
Brian, I wish you would have stayed single. She moved down to a small farming community in the Boot Heel of Missouri, a little place called New Madrid. Farming community, great people, amazing agriculture and love of the land. They would grow just amazing amounts of food and produce that could be shared with everyone. And she moved there to be with friends and family, and rightfully so. But when you move to a small farming community, you narrow your choices for a spouse. And she chose unwisely. She chose a man that had his own trauma and anger issues. And I learned at a very early age that if I let him treat me like a punching bag, that he wouldn't put my mom back in the hospital. But I remember when he broke her nose, he broke her zygoma, he broke her hand. And my mom was 105 pounds on a good day. And for a 200-pound man to push somebody around like that, man, it just broke my heart. It taught me so many tough lessons, and my heart hurt for her. And it was just that was the biggest loss of my life, believe it or not. It wasn't even my father. It was just watching my mom circle and just go down into a place of darkness because she felt that she could not escape. Thankfully, before she passed away, she was able to get out of that broken marriage.
Incredible. You have experienced a life of trauma your whole entire childhood, and you hadn't even seen the military yet.
Nope. And didn't even that was not on my radar, Brian. Because my father was killed in the line of duty, I was given scholarship opportunities for my sister and I. And even though the military came around and I qualified for the Navy nuclear sub program and some other great pinholes for the military that offered amazing bonuses. I mean, you're starting to see some of those bonuses pop back again for our military or those who are signing up. But I didn't need those because I had college paid for and then I had scholarships stacked on top of those. So military was not in my future. And then when mom passed away of cancer, that's when I did a reevaluation of life. Hold on. I did not evaluate life at that time. I was angry. Man, I was pissed off. I was pissed off at God. I was pissed off at people. I was pissed off for myself because I did not end that relationship with the love and attention that it deserved. I mean, we all get into conflict in our lives. And it's not like I was mad at my mother over anything huge. It's that we had a small disagreement. And our last conversation was not one of love and understanding. And so that taught me the value of life and communication and just honoring what we have, which is here today.
You had a childhood experience that was rough, very rough, and you could have easily fallen in that trap of victimhood and become a lifelong criminal and a hoodlum and a thug and been in and out of jail and have, I mean, I'm just saying, this is what happens. This is the honest truth of children that grow up in broken homes, especially ones that are surrounded by trauma and by abuse. And you're an honorable man. I know you personally, and you would end up joining the Army, and you would serve some tours overseas, and you're a combat veteran. But more importantly, you would get out of the military after this honorable service for 4.5 years, and you would begin a career in serving again, always there to serve. Now, you pretty much have become an expert in helping veterans transition into civilian life. Can you explain that a little bit?
I will. I don't like the word expert because we're always needing to grow and learn. I think you'll agree with that, right? And just because something is fact today, that could be fiction tomorrow, depending, especially when it's tied in with the government. You definitely know about that. But let's half step back. Let's talk about before I joined the military.
Yeah,
I was in that dark place, Brian. I was doing things where today I would look at that guy and I wouldn't want somebody like that even near me. And I took a good snapshot of that, like we were talking earlier. I wanted to make sure I never went back to that point in life. I didn't harm anyone and do anything nefarious to the point to where it would have caused a dark place like suicide or hurting someone else. But I was not kind to others. And that is the antithesis of what I wanted to be. So I took a look at my life, and thankfully I had some great family members. Keith Campen is my cousin. I stayed with him, and then he got me a job up in St. Louis. So I started taking classes again and then working. And then I quickly found out that my path would lead me to the military. Okay, so let's glaze over the military time as a medic and talk about when I got out. I knew what I knew in the military, and I wanted to connect with somebody who could get me to the next level. So I started researching the wealthy people, and I looked in my direct area. Of course, the chambers of commerce, my church. Even though I was taking some classes at school at the local community college, but also at Toastmasters, and they were a little bit higher, which is great. But man, I wanted a goal up here, brother. I wanted somebody that could lift me up to where I could get plugged into any community, hit the ground, and start running. So I started doing research on self-help, and I read just about every book by Tom Hopkins, Anthony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Paul J. Meyer. And that last one, it kept reappearing in my life. And I looked him up on the interweb, and he lived in Waco, Texas. And that was a stone's throw away from Fort Hood. So I wrote him a letter and simply stated, Mr. Meyer, this is Tim Stroud. I'm a sergeant at Fort Hood, Texas with the 4th Infantry Division. We are getting ready to deploy under Operation Iraqi Freedom to Kuwait and Iraq. And I would love to show you what I built in Kosovo, the Army Wall of Fame. I would like to make something amazing so I can lift the spirits of my fellow soldiers and bring every one of them back 100% healthy. And so I said, please make yourself available on Wednesday between the 1 o'clock and 1:30 to accept my call. A little brazen, but I knew that's what I needed to do to get his attention. By the way, he's a billionaire. When he passed away, he left an estate between $2.3 and $2.5 billion. Not bad for somebody who used to jump out of perfectly good airplanes, right? So I call his office, Linda Peterson, Paul J. Meyer's office. How may I help you? Miss Peterson, this is Sergeant Stroud in Fort Hood, Texas. I've got a call scheduled with Mr. Meyer. Could you go ahead and put me through, please? And she's like, oh, this is that sergeant from Fort Hood. I said, yes, ma'am. Would you go ahead and put me through, please? I know he's very busy. And he's expecting my phone call. And she's like, oh, he's not in today. And I was like, dang it. I was like, maybe I got the scheduling incorrect. I said, when's the best time to reach him personally? And she's like, he's at his office in the Caymans. And I'm like, oh. I lost my credibility there, didn't I, Miss Peterson? She's like, no. She's like, my son is an Army Ranger. I read your letter, and I faxed it down to him to his office in the Caymans, and he will be the first person that you will be the first person that he meets with when he gets back from his trip. And I was like, yes. So I started my connection with him. Servant leadership was basically 80% of what he taught me. Being Christ-centered and setting goals was the other 20%. Of making sure that you're connecting with people. This is the guy who had 36 vehicles, Brian, on his estate. And they were, the majority of them were 1936 Fords restored to their original condition. And just a great guy. I'm figuring this guy's going to be a jerk. I mean, he's a billionaire. He could spend time with anybody. He mentored the presidents and flew around the world on his private jets. And he welcomed me with open arms, brought me in, and we began our tutelage. And he also connected me with Ken Blanchard, where I got my master's in servant leadership. But from there, he told me how to get dug into the community and how to work with the group that I've already been working with, but not at the level where I needed to be. And so he just lit that fire in me, and that's what I love doing with other people.
Look, yeah, I mean, yeah, you are definitely a high energy guy. I mean, I don't know too many people that have the energy that you do to show up, dress up every single day. And again, that's what makes you a true staple in the community that you serve. Now, explain the volunteer work that you do and the relationships that you've forged in the community.
Well, the first step that I did with Paul, again, I'm only able to do what I'm doing because I listened to other people that had gone there before me and did amazing things. And he said, Tim, you were in the military. Make sure you're connecting with your other military veterans. I said, absolutely. Because I volunteered at the Missouri Veterans Home in St. Louis, Missouri, before I'd signed up. And that's one of the reasons I joined the military, because I met the first Black pharmacist in the state of Missouri. Mr. Taylor was 102 when I met him, and just an amazing guy. And he was telling me about all the changes that he had lived through, and then World War II, and in Korea, and then Vietnam. And I got to talk to all of these walking history books. And that's what convinced me to go in. Well, I wanted more of that in the community. Fort Hood in Central Texas is a great repository for all of this talent for those who decide that they want to retire in Military Town, USA. Between Fort Hood and San Antonio, there's just a plethora of those who dig in and build in that area. Well, I wanted to connect with them. And so that's what I started doing, is getting connected with the local Chamber of Commerce and with Toastmasters and a couple other groups like Rotary. And when I saw Rotary, it really struck me because I'd seen the little tiny cog, their symbol, their logo, and then I finally read it, service above self. I instantly connected with so many of the different members. We had about 180 members, active members, that would meet for Friday breakfast, 6:45 every Friday. 7 o'clock, ding, that bell comes on. Man, you better be out there fighting and getting ready to meet some people. I loved it. I love connecting with people. I would take my eldest daughter, Amber, with me, and she loved it too. In fact, she's still involved with Rotary. And we started doing the small projects around town. And I started watching the changes, not only to the people that were being recipients of the good-natured Rotarians, but also the changes within the Rotary members. And I was like, I want to be a recipient of that change, and I want to be that catalyst for change. And that's what inspired me to go another step and build the Killeen Police Department Law Enforcement Assistance Fund. And since our inception, we've given away over $1 million. And I probably should know the exact number, but I'm a board member emeritus now. I don't actually have to go to the meetings. I help decide where the money goes and raise the money, which is great. I learned the value of training up good people and turning that over. And with this 100% volunteer organization, 99% of all the funds that come in go directly to the police officers, staff members, and their families in their time of need. Just like my family needed that support when I was 5, now they don't have to pass the cup or pass the hat and beg for money. We have the direct resources that are there. And I know through human resources, a lot of the departments, they have their insurance and they have their death benefits. But man, if you ever had a family, lost a family member, sometimes it takes months or up to a year to get those benefits to pay out if there's anything wonky going on with the cause of death. And so we're able to step in and help out, not just when it's end of life, but when they face financial hardships. And let's face it, our police officers, they don't get paid at the level they should get paid. And sometimes when they're in a bad job, it's very enticing to make a left turn instead of a right turn and stay on the true path. And once you take a step off that path, it's hard to get back on it. So we make sure that they stay on that path and that the finances aren't an issue for their integrity.
Very good. Yeah, I got a question for you. It's kind of going to be a little bit off topic now,
Okay.
but that's okay. Now, you had mentioned that you had met your friend. You said he was the first Black pharmacist in Missouri, correct?
Yes.
Now, he was 102 years old, and you remember the stories that he would tell, a walking history book, from all the life experiences that he has seen in 102 years of life. Now, the Great Depression, all these, World War I and II, and all this conflict and all this world strife. Now, we are living through some incredible times with 9/11, 20-year war on terror. We got COVID, we've got social unrest, we've got political strife, we've got all these crazy topics and circumstances and events that have happened over the last, 20, 25 years in our country. Now, when your friend, being 102 years old, was going through all of these events, they came out of it. The United States came out of it. But as your personal opinion, with everything that we've gone through right now in this current state of our country, do you see a way out of it?
The answer is with integrity and fortitude, we can come through this. But if we are on our current path, and I'm not talking about the left, I'm not talking about the right, I'm not talking about the independents, I'm talking about America as a whole. Brian, we're in trouble. We're in trouble because when our 16th president was alive and he helped mesh the country back together and abolish slavery, Lincoln had a hard task of not just getting rid of something, but bringing together a people. Over the last 25 years, like you stated, social media has pulled us apart. You would think something like that would gather those stories and weave it into such a tapestry. We could say, hey, that is our beautiful tapestry. We made it together. Instead, people are more concerned about pointing out, it's like, oh, see that little tiny yellow line right there with the little tiny red tinge to it? Yeah, that's my family's line, and that's our part. That's more important. No, you're one thread. How does your thread affect the one next to it? Is it part of strength where you pull on that thread that the fabric becomes taut and stronger, or do you pull on that thread and it simply falls away like an errant piece?
Mm-hmm.
I think we know where we are today, and we have to have leadership. It doesn't matter if it's a country, a company, or a nonprofit organization. It rises or it falls based on the level of leadership. That's one of the things that Paul J. Meyer taught me, is that you can affect that change sometimes within and sometimes from the outside. You have to make sure that assessment. It's great if you have positive forces on both sides and that you can affect that change together. But instead, with social media, we've got about 10%, maybe it's 5% on each side of the political aisle. And all they're doing is just launching ICBMs at each other, trying to get the latest talking point and headline for that day, instead of moving forward for effective change. And you've been a victim, but also an advocate for change with our government and seeing the things where we're going. We have yet to see the leadership that this country needs. And man, we've talked about this before. I mean, you and I, not so much, but a lot of other veterans and sane people in the United States. How is it that we are a mecca, that we are just a great drawing point for the most brilliant, energetic, and motivated people in the world? And then when we look at our elected leaders or our possibilities from the two main parties, because let's face it, we're still a two-party system, that these are our choices? Are you kidding me? I like some of the things that column A has done, and I like some of the things that column B has done. but they rarely meet in the middle. Sometimes it's with veteran issues and on education and healthcare. Sometimes they use those three things as warfare for each other. And you don't see that coming together until something has brought that catalyst home to us, like 9/11. And you look at, we rally around certain countries or cities around the world that are being oppressed. We're like, let's go put on our armor. We're going to help them out. And we feel great about ourselves. And then we turn on social media and we look at all the junk that we're doing right here at home. I mean, we live in such a state of abundance. We really do live like royalty. I mean, where else can you go and get coffee beans from another continent and cream from somewhere else and cinnamon from a totally different country and put it together and just hit a couple buttons and you've got a fresh cup of coffee, right? And all of the other things that we have available at our fingertips, and we're worried about what somebody else is doing, what they're buying and what the latest trend is. Man, we've never gotten so far off mark, and I'll bring it home for you, is that has pulled us apart, and that has created such a strife between people. And it hurts my heart, Brian, when you serve your country and you fight for other countries to get rid of their oppressors. And we have built our own prison block by block. And then we've looked around and we are so blind to it that we can't leave.
Right. Yeah. It's, like you said, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Out of 350 million Americans, this is the best we have to offer. You look at our elected officials who've been there for 40 years that can't get anything done. It's the same song and dance. It's gotten incredibly just, they're off their rockers, and we've become a radicalized nation. And let's face it, radicalized nations are the types of nations that we go to interfere in their radicalizations of their own people or their government. Now, if we saw a country acting as if we were right now in the United States, we would probably be heading that way. Or if not heading that way, we'd be there soon. I mean, I just don't, a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing going on in our country for the last 2 years, again, it is frightening, and I think that we are on the wrong path. But I don't want
words will help clear that up. Term limits.
Oh, absolutely. I'm a big, firm believer in that.
You advocate for that. I mean,
you can't spend 50 years in the Senate, it's like no.
It was never designed to be a career. It's something that you were called, just like the seminary. You are called to serve. Instead, they're there of padding their wallets. And I've got friends. I've got sitting congressmen and women that are amongst my friends. But I look at let's just face it, their personal wealth when they went in, when they were scrapping it along the dirt trails in Texas. And now look at them at multimillionaires. And I'm like, I know you make $170-ish thousand a year. It's like, how did you get into that millionaire realm so quickly? I was like, you can only publish so many books. And I'm not denigrating anybody that writes a book or brings value to people, but I'm saying you should not do it on the backs of others. We should be lifting up and doing great things. And I'm going to transition, doing great things. I'm so ecstatic that Tom Hanks is finally getting into the nonprofit world, because his counterpart in Forrest Gump, Gary Sinise, who played a soldier in the military, has done wonderful things for our veterans over the last 25 years. Now, Tom has his program, Hanks for the Troops, and now he's selling coffee, and 100% of those proceeds go to veteran service organizations. We need more people like that. And I don't even agree with Tom Hanks's politics, but I love him as an actor. I'm able to separate that and see what the things that he does. And speaking of actors, you and I were talking right before we went live about the Army Wall of Fame, that some of the pictures that you can see, and I'll attempt to show you without too many of the umbilical cords that I have here. You said it looks like a classroom. You've got some of the pictures up at the top with my bald head over here, and you can see some of the pictures over here. Can you see those, Brian?
Yeah, I can.
So you've got Buzz Aldrin, Pat Sajak, who was also in the military, Charlie Daniels, 5 of the last 7 presidents. I didn't get to meet them all, but I got to meet quite a few of these people. I would write them letters of support when I was in Kosovo and Iraq and in Kuwait. And I said, you may not agree with why we're deployed, but I'd love for you to support our troops as we're being deployed around the world during the holidays. Please send an autographed picture or any memorabilia that we will give away. And if you'd be so kind, I'd love a copy for myself. And overwhelming support that we had for this. I mean, when I was in Kosovo, I gave away over $200,000 just worth of items, our golf bags, computers, scooters, you name it. And then similar when we were in Iraq, and built an Army Wall of Fame at every post where I was at. Sadly, at Fort Hood, they started doing renovations, and some of the pictures weren't as secure as they were before. So we relocated it, but I'd love to host these somewhere else. I still have about 650, maybe 700 of the autographed pictures that are there. And I love it because you look at, if you just Google them and you find out where they were on the political aisle, who cares? They took the time to autograph something and send it to the troops. And we had such a blast of playing games and just bring people together. And you can imagine when I was in Kosovo, we had red base and blue base, as well as Camp Monteith and Camp Bonsteel. And as a combat medic, a guy, and we had female medics that we used to say, the first sergeants and captains kind of wanted a guy, because even though the women were amazing medics, there's always the element of what's going to happen, and they really weren't sure. So I was always going on rotation with those guys and gals. But when they come back to our FOB and our control point, they would see these pictures at our CP, and they were just blown away. And we played all these trivia games, and we played Wheel of Fortune. We played Jeopardy to give all this stuff away. It brought people together that didn't look like each other, didn't sound like each other, different religions. And since we were deployed during the holidays, I got to help bring these people together and learn about mosques and synagogues and their Christian centers, and really find out how we're different and how much we're alike. We got to celebrate that, because people had no idea what a Wiccan was, but we had one of our Army guys get married to a woman. Now, that's not my religion of choice. That was theirs. But I wanted to learn that in case I was the last guy they saw on the battlefield. So if they had any last rites, that I could honor their service and their religion by just being there for them. And that spoke volumes to them. So we got to really connect a lot of people. And that's what brought me to Houston, because you want to talk about diversity. Oh, that's Houstontown, USA, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, you've just thrown so much at me here. It's hard to keep up. You are a man of huge strength and energy. And, you know, you often speak on topics such as employment and education and homelessness and support services. Now, in your eyes, what is the biggest issue that you see facing the veteran community?
Well, that's a can of worms right there. And which worm we're going to start with on this fishing trip? I think we start with support services, and then we'll just gradually get into the others, because for the last 50 years, for anybody who served in Vietnam or during that time, when you took off that uniform, you were a baby killer, you were horrible, you were a dredge on humanity, and nobody wanted to deal with you. And so it's like, that's where the phrase "suck it up, buttercup" came from. So they just had to take everything, pack it down, put it right back here, drive on. And they said, no longer will we ever have this happen to our veterans, because they never got the send-off nor the hero's welcome that they deserved. Not saying, hey, let's celebrate of what we're doing, but let's honor their service and sacrifice. And I listened to them, Brian, and I did not want to have those changes come to our nation again and pull us even further apart. So we went to I went to some really smart people at the VA. At Olin T VA in Central Texas, the lead psychologist was Dr. Catherine Kochula, and she wanted to start a program called TexVet. It was a miserable failure. And then I met with her and I said, Doc, we got to change some stuff. And she's like, you're my guy. Let's go. And so we went to Governor Perry and he gave us $1.6 million to birth this idea. And we took all of these resources for learn knowledge and activity knowledge. Well, on your learn knowledge, that's your education. That means going to school, reading books, listening to podcasts, doing all kinds of fun stuff, but also talking with somebody, a psychologist, a family member, a pastor, somebody that you trust that has that knowledge to impart on you at this point in your life. Now, what is this? Well, that's that activity knowledge. If you only have this, and then you go to this, without this, you're not going to have anything. Let's just say like riding a bike. If you go and you're like, hey, you want to ride a bike, Tim? I've got a twin brother, and we both want to learn. Well, your brother goes to Texas A&M, and he studies math, he studies physics, he studies inertia and force and everything about riding a bike and how all the pieces are put together with this beautiful architecture. And you instead, you go to the Tour de France, and all you do is get on a damn bike and start riding. You learn how to fall down, and you learn how to pedal and how to stop and how to ride the wind currents. Well, who's better? Depends on the situation. But now combine those. Man, that's what we're talking about. So if you have your mental health and you have that activity that brings you joy, as long as it's legal, and making sure that you're combining with your tribe, because that's one of the worst things we do to our veterans. We serve together, and the Army serves with the Navy and the Air Force and the Marines, and now the Space Force and the Coast Guard. Pull us out of that element. You no longer have your tribe. You've lost a portion of your identity. So we bring them back together with these activities through the Rotary Club of Greater Houston, with Easter Seals of Greater Houston. The mission continues with Serve and also Camp Shield, Camp Hope, and the Waves Project. So that's what I'm so excited about, is I get to be part of a program, be that connector guy. So with TexVet, all we did, we vetted all those resources and made sure that you got the mental health and you got the supportive services that really help you out. Now, the supportive services, that's where you're supposed to network with others. You may not be a master networker. You're like, hold on, Tim, I don't have your energy. I don't want to go into a room and give a presentation, and I don't want to sit anywhere with my back to a window or the door. I'm going to be in a closed room and I'll be the happiest. Well, let's take a step. You weren't always like that. Let's find out what brings you joy. It could be hunting, fishing, scuba, parasailing, underwater basket weaving, something that brings you joy, or just being around dogs. Let's find that. Let's pair that with a battle buddy. And then let's talk about it. What did you like about it? What did you not like about it? Take a step forward. Do it again and again. And you bring in someone else. And I can tell you with 100% probity on the matter is that equine assistance services, canine services, aqua therapy, depends on the veteran. And at that point where they need it, once you plug them in, man, you find that they honed while they were wearing the uniform. And now they're in civilian clothes. So let's deploy them back out to do great things in the community and now bring us even closer together. With fewer than 1% of our population serving in uniform, we need veterans to be active in the community more than ever. If you're just watching this podcast and it's not around Christmas time, we just celebrated Thanksgiving and we fed over 9,000 people through Operation Turkey. It's the largest project, and we host it through the Greater Houston Veterans Rotary Club. And to put that in perspective, the city of Houston and Harris County has a program each year at George R. Brown where they feed 18 to 20,000 people. It's a great program, but you have to go down there and connect. I love that, but there are still some people you need to bring out. So we have a program that we feed 9,000 people. We fed half of what the city and the county did, and we delivered these meals. So we had people smoking the turkeys and bringing this stuff in, mashed potatoes and the corn and this the rolls and the pumpkin pie. Somebody had to set up and clean up and play music and connect with these people. We did it in such a fashion that everybody who rolled up their sleeves got more than a great meal. They got that piece of them that they get to share with somebody else. And that's what really builds a community. So we need more people doing that. And again, that's one of the reasons I love what I do. I was an okay medic in the Army, never lost a patient, but my goal was connecting and lifting up and setting goals, and haven't stopped since, Brian.
Yeah, that camaraderie piece is, very, very important. Now, I think this is the best time to be a veteran in our nation's, in our nation's history. And there's so many people out there that want to help. There's so many 501c3s out there. There are so many sincere and genuine, heartfelt people out there that really have their hearts in the right place, that do want to help so many veterans out there in need, as well as first responders. Now, what's the engagement like at these events, and what's the state of the veteran community in Houston, Texas?
Well, we're blessed to have such a community to where it is an oasis for those who come here. The education is important because all of the state schools, and I think I've spoken at just about every one of them, including the community colleges. And so there is a culture there to where it is embracing. So if you come and you serve, they understand that you're a non-traditional student and you may be 27 years old or 47 years old, sitting next to a 17-year-old who graduated high school early, that's griping that their dad bought him a BMW instead of a Mercedes. And so you've got to have that balance there at school. Houston is that great leveler because we have enough leaders that have gone there and done amazing things, come back to help build the structure, but make it inviting and embracing for those veterans. And that includes having good, solid jobs. But that is interwoven with our political system. When you cut out some of the oil, gas, and energy that has made Texas great, and you start pulling those jobs away, and then add in the COVID factor, where we shut down for quite some time, it makes it difficult. But the great thing about it is that we do have elected officials that are still fighting on the Hill. I've got 9 bills in front of me that we're still trying to get through to make sure we have additional resources for those who need it. And you talking about engagement. Well, it's on your level of where you want to be. It could be that you needed to network for a job. You go down Minute Maid Park with the DAV and hire our heroes, or you can connect locally with some of the other groups that will help you one-on-one train yourself to speak better, find your voice through somewhere like Toastmasters, hone your resume, tweak or build your LinkedIn profile to where it is inviting to those who need your services, and translate your military service out of all that jargon into civilian speak. And so you can really connect and showcase those skills that make you valuable. And you get so much training. It would be great if colleges had leadership training. I know Texas A&M has the Corps of Cadets, which is amazing program, but not everybody has those. And so if you look at that as a whole, we're set up for success if you want to continue learning and you will accept diversity, because Houston is one of the most diverse cities on the face of the planet.
Now, we have a few minutes left, and this has been a great interview, and I could probably talk to you for 10 hours on all of the knowledge that you have. You're a very intelligent man on a lot of topics. Now, I just want to close on mental health. It is a major issue going on in our country. Now, do you believe that there is a real stigma attached to mental health?
Absolutely. And there will be for some time, Brian, because we've gotten to a point to where we're starting to talk about it, which is great, but that's only one step. Once you identify the problem, just like if you were a medic or a doctor or a PA, once you've identified that problem, which takes strength, by the way, to raise your hand and say, you know what, let's take a look. I may need some help, or I have a friend that needs some help. After you've made that step, now after the identification, how do you treat it? And so do you look for just talking to a psychologist You're talking about skills versus pills, because a psychiatrist is more apt to give you something that you can take orally, or a medication that will help get you a prescribed set of identifiers and behavior. Or is there an activity? Well, it depends on the veteran and depends on their spot. I never want to see a veteran or a family member get to a spot to where they're just spiraling and all they see is the bottom of the drain. They're starting to see darkness. If you served in uniform, for me, I'd love it if you served honorably, but let's face it, sometimes there are times, there are instances that try our very soul, and you're in a spot to where you made a left turn instead of a right. You made a career-ending decision. I don't want that to be a life-ending decision. I want to make sure that they get the help that they need. Not everybody qualifies for Camp Hope and can go to their facilities, but they can go to one of the different programs that are here in Texas and make sure that they're connecting. And that's the most important word, Brian, is making sure that they're connecting. It's not wearing all this memorabilia and stuff and saying, hey, thank me for my service. If you're proud of your service and your branch, wear it, damn it. And don't apologize for it. Don't be seeking anything outside of your area of expertise, meaning that don't expect anybody to give you anything just because you are a veteran. You've earned that spot in your life in that point in history. Now earn the value of connecting with someone else. And I can tell you right now is that when you start doing that, you open up to listening to others. You learn so much. I remember one of my last conversations with Frank Buckles. He was the last surviving World War I veteran. He was 110 years young when we had our last conversation. And I loved how he wanted to just celebrate life and his service and bring more people together. And I'll be blessed if I make it to 100 and get to where he was. But my goal is very similar to his, to bring people together, make sure that they're connecting with the resources that are available. Mental health is so important. I'm glad that we're closing on this note, because if you're watching this right now, doesn't matter if you're active duty, a veteran, a spouse, or just somebody that's connected, and you need more information. Brian's going to put the information up for Easter Seals of Greater Houston. That's one portal. And it's a no wrong door system. So if you come in through Easter Seals and you feel like, I'm gonna get my services from the VA, great. I want to make sure that you plug into the VA and the new resources that are coming in January of 2023 with the new legislation that was passed. Maybe even passed it before, like our Vietnam veterans like Bill Palco and Robert Gephardt, and they thought they wouldn't qualify for benefits. Well, with the Blue Water legislation that came out for our veterans for Vietnam, only took us 50 years. They got granted their benefits. There were others that along the way, and Brian, you know this, they got passed over, and that's damn it, that's wrong. And we've got to improve the system, and that just takes you down a step as a person and as a veteran. You feel that you're less than. Let me tell you, if you're watching this right now and you served, thank you for your service, and we lift you up. I want to make sure that you connect with us. If you're watching this before we go out to the VA cemetery next Saturday, a week from Saturday, come out and lead Reese out with our veterans, or connect with us on LinkedIn and one of our programs. I want to make sure that you connect with somebody out in the community and that you're taking your steps for your road to recovery.
Very, very good. And I want to end on this, identify those in need. And there are so many people out there that don't want to be reached. They don't want to, they want to be left alone. A lot of veterans, a lot of first responders, they want to be left alone, but identify those in need. And it's very hard to reach people that don't want to be reached. But like you said, when you're spiraling, that drain and you are riddled with anxiety and depression, folks, all it takes sometimes is making a phone call and reaching out to those in need, and perhaps reaching out to those who, folks that matter the most to you in your life. And guys, connect with Tim on LinkedIn at Stroud Marketing. He is a book of knowledge.
It's a pop-up book, folks. Don't get excited. It's not that much knowledge.
But thank you for joining us today, Tim. We sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the military and veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication is truly admirable.
Thank you, Tally.
Yes, sir. Until next time, for Tuesdays with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good